Hey everybody, in this tutorial we're going to be taking a look at a couple of popcorn effects that are included in the PopcornFX 40 library, and you can purchase that from the content store separately. I'll be providing a link in the description for where you can do that. But what we have on the screen right now is I'm going to go over to the scene manager here and into a particle. We've applied a popcorn effects called Dissolve Image. All right, you can find that in the Content tab by going to your particles, and once you have that, once you purchase that PopcornFX Library 40. You can find it in this folder. Under VFX, you'll find one called Dissolve Image. Now, we've already applied that to our scene. We already have something set up here. So I'm just going to go ahead and select that from the particle, rather from the scene manager there. Go over to my popcorn tab over here. And let's take a look at exactly what we have here. So right now we have the default bitmap image loaded in there. There's no texture resource, no source image as of yet. So let's press Shift S rather and simulate it. And you can see this is the default one that we have. So it's an iClone 7 real-time 3D animation. The image just kind of dissolves into a whole bunch of particles here, which is pretty cool. And they just dissipate into nothing. And then the process just repeats itself as long as you have the simulation running there. Okay? So I'm going to press Shift S and take off that simulation. And let's take a look at how we can just, swap this out. So I'm going to go over to my Explorer window here, and I have a couple of images prepared. The first one is a little kind of banner, I guess, that we have here, iClone 7 and PopcornFX. So if we want to just bring that, and we can just go ahead and click and drag it from the Explorer window onto the texture resource channel over there. And let's try and simulate this one more time. So here's Shift S, we're simulating again, and you can see this same thing. It's going to just, dissolve into a bunch of particles. So pretty easy, just to kind of replace that image, pretty easy, pretty straightforward stuff. Let's just stop that simulation there again. I'm pressing Shift S, by the way, for this hotkey, just in case you're wondering. Let's take a look at a couple of other examples. This next example here, this next image I have prepared is a JPEG image. You can see it's a JPEG there. I'm just going to click and drag this onto my channel there. And this is an image of Zane kind of glowing and flexing. Let's just simulate that. And you can see this one, wow, the resolution is actually pretty big, so it's a pretty big image. So if we wanted to, decrease the size of that image, then we can go down here under Attributes. Now keep in mind you need to have the PopcornFX plugin in order to be able to adjust all these values here. So I'm going to just change the image scale down to maybe 0.1 from 0.25. And let's Control S and simulate that one more time. Alright, so pretty cool. So now we have the right size. However, you notice there's a lot of kind of distortion on our character when we simulate and just kind of move around. You notice there's some distortion there. Now there's a couple of ways you can solve this. The easiest way to do it is just kind of increase the particle size. So we'll increase it to like maybe a value of 2.0. Okay, and now there's also a parameter here called flux. Now flux is a very sensitive parameter because when you increase the flux to like the value of 2, for example, you're going to take up a lot more system memory there. So what I tend to do is if you want, if you have a lower performance computer, lower performance video card, taking the flux down will often, solve a lot of issues. I'm going to take this down to maybe 0.2, and we're going to increase the particle size to 2.0, and let's Shift S. And now you can see we have a much more coherent image, and we get that nice still particle dissipation right after that. Whereas if you take the flux up, it's going to you're going to get a bit more of a richer color, but it's also going to really slow down your computer here. You can see we're only using 1.1 gigabytes of our video memory here. Whereas if we take the flux up to like a value of 2, for example, you can see when we lag a little bit because we're just using a NVIDIA GeForce 970X on this current computer, because this is like a general use computer that a lot of our users might have. So just keep that in mind. I'm not using a super fast computer right now. Okay. Of course, we recommend generally you have a GeForce of 1070 or something like that would be ideal, or up. Anyways, okay, so that's the example there of the JPEG. Let's do the same thing. You can it's also compatible with PNG. So I'm going to just take this Zane Glow PNG image, bring that into the same swatch, and let's again take that flux down to what did I have it at 0.2, I believe, and simulate that. Yeah, so also compatible with PNG images as well. And there you go. All right, pretty cool stuff. So that's compatible with PNG images, banners, and JPEGs and everything like that. Now, as I mentioned before, the flux will also take up will also increase the amount of video memory. You can also increase the amount of color intensity as well. Let's take the color intensity up to like a value of, let's maybe take it up to a value of 5, okay? And let's see what results here. So you can also increase the color intensity, and you're not going to get much increase, zero increase in fact, on video memory. So color intensity is an easy way to kind of just really increase the amount of intensity on your image, whereas flux will take a lot more video memory. So just keep that in mind. It's kind of a little bit of a workaround there. Okay, so let's stop that simulation now. Now let's take a look at another example. We're going to be applying a different template this time. Go over to the Content tab under Particle again, PopcornFX Library 40, and under VFX. This time we're going to be using this Selective Move tool. So now you can see we have the Selective Move template enabled here, or applied to our scene rather. And you can see over on the right we have a bitmap image and a mesh. Okay, so you can apply this to an image or a mesh. Let's go ahead and simulate first of all the default image that we have set up here. Just a little genius cat. Okay, so again, like I mentioned, you can apply this to other meshes in your scene as well. So if I take off that simulation, let's go over here to my props and make our little ball visible. Just applied a ball to the scene here. And this is just, you can find this in the Content Manager under Props. Oops, let's just go back here. There we go. Under Props and 3D Blocks, you'll find down here the ball 001. Okay, you can just apply that to your scene. We can apply another one if we want. Let's just delete the old one. Alright, let's bring this to wherever we want. Again, using the W hotkey to bring up that movement gizmo, in case you're not aware. And you can use the R hotkey to scale it as well if you want it to be larger. Doesn't really matter. Let's go ahead and to the scene manager with our selective move selected there. Let's go to the mesh right here. And right now it's a default mesh. Okay, so it's just the image plane. However, we can select, pick a target here. Let's pick our sphere, ball 001, and let's simulate that. And you can see now our image there of the cat, the smart little cat, is wrapped around this sphere. Now what you can do is, now that you've applied that to the mesh, I'm just going to Control S the simulation there. We're going to make the ball invisible, so it'll be invisible, but that particle effect will still be applied. If we go to Selective Move and Shift S again, that particle effect will still be applied to the mesh of that sphere, even though it's invisible. Okay. And if we play back, you can see the same result right here. Boom. Alright, so kind of some weird, creepy looking cat like this. Okay, so that's how you can apply the Selective Move template to any sort of mesh, using any sort of image you want. Okay, I'm just going to stop the playback on this. Well, let's take a look at how we can actually apply this to specific parts of our mesh as well. So we applied that image, or that effect rather, to the entire sphere. But we can actually be more selective. We can actually mask out certain areas that we don't want to have this particle effect. So I'm going to load another project here and show you an example of that. Okay, so what we have on the screen here is a simple lion's head mesh, and we've applied the same Selective Move template to the lion's head here, and I have it selected. So if I just press Control, or rather Shift S to simulate here, once I have it selected, you can see we have some nice particles kind of just streaming down from the lion's head, but basically they're coming out of every crevice of the lion's head. So if we wanted, for example, to have them in a certain area, only emit from maybe the nose and the mouth, I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. So let's end the simulation here. And you can see right now we don't have a bitmap image in the texture resource channel right now. But we do have the sampler shape, and we've selected the lion's head, okay? So if we want to use this texture resource channel, we can do that, and we could put a mask in here. We can put a mask in there that allows us to select a certain area of the lion's head that we want the texture, or the particles rather, to emit from. All right, but let's take a look at adjusting our attributes first here. So let's take a look. I'm going to simulate first. Press Control S, or rather Shift S, and simulate again. We can change the base size of our particles here. You can see the base size effect right there. I'm going to leave it at a value of about 0.02 there, so you can barely notice it there. And the fall threshold scale, if we take this down, notice that it'll be a lot more like a liquid, almost like a water kind of flowing down like this. So we'll change that to 0.01 to give us a lot of kind of gravity going on there. And then the next one, fall power, you can change the fall power to a very light fall power or a very heavy one. When it's heavy, it seems like more like a natural gravity type effect. And the fall speed as well, we can change that to a slower fall speed, kind of have it swirling around the lion's head. We can change it to 1, and have it just like, really with a high speed, just kind of falling down as if it's just, falling out of the lion's, certain crevices of the lion's head there. All right, now we don't want to use the image color right now because we don't have an image in there, and we don't want to use that texture resource image. So let's just go ahead and take that all the way down to 0. And we can change our base color here to like a nice light brown, like a nice sand color here. All right, and there you go. We have a nice, sand color, like golden sand falling from the crevices now. And then base opacity, you can pump that up a little bit, just to give us a bit more of a look, a bit more substance to our particles there. And then after that, let's change our brightness as well. Maybe take that brightness down a little bit. Maybe down to like 6.3 or 7 or something like that. And then for flux, flux we can really adjust. It doesn't really matter in this case. We're gonna pump it up a little bit. You'll get a bit more substance to your particles if you take that flux up. Now keep in mind again that a higher flux value will kind of take up more system resources there. So our video memory is at 1.3 there. Just keep that in mind when you have a higher level of flux there. And then again, you can adjust the other values down here as well, the lifetime and image contrast. We're not going to worry about that right now, because we have I think I kind of like this setting right here. This is a good setting for us to get started with. Okay, so again, what I mentioned before, we're going to get the particles to only emit from a certain part of the mesh. Let's press Shift S and end the simulation there, and let's go up here now to the texture resources. Now what I'm going to do first is select the actual lion's head, and I'm going to load the map, the UV map for the lion into Photoshop. So we can just go ahead and launch UV map using this UV reference tool down here. And once that loads in Photoshop, you'll see it'll be a kind of a complicated mesh. So you probably at this point don't really know where you want to put your masking and everything like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to iClone, and we're going to launch the ambient occlusion map. All right. So this might be a little bit easier. We can just go ahead and select launch there. And so here, so basically what we need to do is put an opacity mask into that texture resource channel that only has, white in certain areas where we want the particles to emit from, which in this case is the mouth area right here and the nostrils. So luckily I already have an image prepared. I'm going to go ahead and load it into Photoshop here, and just load it up like this. You can see right here how it is compared to the actual ambient occlusion map. Okay, so I'm going to take all of this by pressing Control A, Control C, and I'm going to copy it onto this channel here. And then we can just take the opacity of this layer down. You can kind of see exactly, where that is on the actual mask. But I've already done this previously because I don't want to waste time on this tutorial doing it. But basically, all you need to do is just take a white brush and, brush over the areas that you want. Maybe put a little bit of blending around the edges, just like this. And you don't have to be too detailed in a lot of cases. But yeah, so this is what we're going to have right here. Just this one little mask right here. So I'm going to close down Photoshop right now since we don't need it. We're running in the background there. Now let's go ahead back to our selective move particle effect and go to our popcorn tab. And then let's load in that map into the texture resources channel. So I'm just going to go back into Explorer here and click and drag it into the texture resource channel there. And then once we do that, let's Shift S and simulate one more time. And there you have it. We have the particles only emitting from the lion's mouth and nose there. So that's really about all there is to it. I just kind of wanted to show you guys how you can use the selective move tool, to emit particles in various ways, apply them to a mesh, and change the attributes a little bit. Again, keep in mind that to change the attributes, you need to have the PopcornFX plugin. You need to have purchased that plugin in order to adjust the attributes there. Again, just keep that in mind. And yeah, so that's about all there is to it. Hopefully you learned a lot in this tutorial, and thanks so much for watching as always. And make sure you check out our other YouTube videos on our YouTube channel, especially the PopcornFX ones, and our forums over at forum.reallusion.com if you have any further questions. And I will see you in the next video.